Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fearless and Free TV. Today I have on my guest, Olivia. How do you say your last name, Olivia? And I've talked to you about 100 times.
It's Parr-Rud, like good.
Oh, rude. Okay.
Norwegian.
I know it's not rude, and I know it's not red. So what is it?
Right. It's weird.
So Olivia is a Facebook friend of mine. We've actually met in person a couple of times. She used to live in Redondo Beach, just a few blocks from me, so we've met for lunch a couple of times. Before I bring Olivia in, I just want to mention really quick that hop on over to my website, pick up a copy of your free book, which is titled Rise Up. It's a simplified guide to the Great Awakening, Spiritual Revolution, and the Ascension. And it is... this is a book that I wrote in November. It's specifically for this time that we are in right now on the planet. And what makes this book unique is that one entire chapter is dedicated to understanding the terminology that's floating around in the world right now. So hop on over and check that out. I've also got some books and programs over there. And if you need some personal spiritual counseling, I also provide spiritual counseling services for whatever is going on in your life. If you have issues you need to resolve, if you have people you're having issues with, if you have a story from your past that's still haunting you, I help with that. So I'm going to bring on my friend Olivia. She's going to be talking this morning about love in the workplace. And as I said to a friend of mine a few minutes ago, this is not about sex in the workplace. This is about love in the workplace. So Olivia is going to be coming on and talking to us about that and why it is so important to bring love into the workplace. So here's Olivia. I'm excited to have this conversation and see what she has to say about all this. Oh, and one more thing. What I love about this is that she's actually a scientist. So I'm fascinated by the whole bridging science and spirituality together, as you all know. I've had this before, and it's one of my favorite subjects. So let's have this chat. So Olivia, tell us about you.
Well, yeah, people are kind of surprised when I talk about writing and caring about bringing love into business. So I'll just give you a little history that kind of ties it together. As a real young child, I was really into the mystical realms and was really living probably in other frequencies without knowing it, right? And I was very ADD, so I couldn't concentrate well enough to read. And my two older sisters and my mother were really voracious readers. And I think to me, it was a form of rebellion. So I just rejected it. And then ended up studying mathematics. And that was fun for me. And I ended up getting a degree. And then I kind of became this earth mom. And I had a lot of trauma during my childhood that sent me on this spiritual search. And so I really spent the next 10 years doing a lot of spiritual seeking while I raised a family. Around my 40s, I thought, I really loved working in business. I did a little bit of it before college and after college. So I wanted actually at that point to get some degree in spiritual psychology or something. And a friend of mine said, oh, you should use your math skills. You'll have a better chance of getting a job. And my husband at the time was sick. And I thought, yeah, I might become the breadwinner. So that's the practical thing to do, right? And so I got a master's degree in statistics. And then I got thrown into this corporate environment that was so fear-based. And after being this kind of open-hearted spiritual seeker, it was traumatizing. And yet I was the breadwinner. And I really had to shut down part of myself. So my work was very successful. I ended up staying there a couple years and then transferred to a different company, which had a much better culture. But I started to notice how when people were treated better, they actually performed better, but I had no background in this. It was just what I was noticing. So after about 5 years in the industry, I really liked the rapid change, and I was kind of getting stuck now in these high positions that I didn't like, that just being in the same office every day, whatever. So I decided to write a book, and then I knew that would help me go off on my own. So I wrote a book on data science that became a bestseller almost overnight. And I was now in demand as a speaker all over the world. And I was teaching how to build these predictive models, kind of like your FICO score is built that way. but my real interest was this more open-hearted culture issue. So I started offering talks on the importance of good communication and how to collaborate and how to be creative. And people were kind of wondering why I was doing it. But every conference I went to, they would have me do all these talks and they'd say, can you do a workshop? So I knew there was sort of this hunger, but I wasn't clear on how to make that my work. And I actually started a PhD for a while in organizational development. But I realized they were working in the past, and I was more interested in this more quantum approach, this field energy perspective. And so I just did my own research. I wrote another book in 2009, which was all about that, evolutionary biology and quantum physics and how that affects how we can look at the workplace from that perspective. And then I really was sort of exhausted from all the travel and work. So I just pulled back and started really tuning into what I wanted to do. And my guidance said I should start writing about love and business. And I was like, oh man, I still needed corporate clients. I was still putting kids through college. And so I was a little worried about hurting my reputation. But so I wrote another technical book, actually, at the request of a SaaS software. And it was all about how to use their tools to build predictive models. But I insisted that I have a section in each chapter, which was about culture. And it was called Notes from the Field. And so anything I taught, I said, all right, here's how you share it with people to make them feel comfortable, and the language to use and the statistics to avoid, things like that. Well, that book ended up winning the best of show at the 2014-2015 Carolina Technical Book Competition. And that told me that I was onto something, and it felt like it gave me enough credibility that I could now come out with my book about love and business. So I ended up writing Love at Work in 2018, where I share a lot of data about how companies that treat people, I define love as caring and compassion. So that's one of the definitions. And that there's been research. There's a great book called Terms of Endearment, or Firms of Endearment, that looks at different companies and all the research and how companies that treat their people better over time do better. So the first year, maybe not, because you can always get short-term profits by destroying your company. But over the long term, after a year and then on down 5 or 10, it's exponentially more profitable. So we can look at different companies and see this. A lot of the tech companies are more like group-based and empowerment-based, but the older companies like insurance and banks still struggle with it. So that's kind of how I got here, and how I can prove with data that love is really good for business.
Oh, that is fantastic. So we know that we're moving into a love-based reality. Mm-hmm. And so part of this is helping people to redefine what love is, because there's a misperception that love is just a relationship thing, when we know it's actually it's really the stuff all things are made of. Love is all that is, and it's all those things that make us feel harmonious and, as you said, compassion and understanding and support and mutual respect, all of that. That's all love-based.
Yeah,
so,
and healthy.
That's kind of interesting. Now, you're going to like this. So as you know, I'm a conscious channel. And about a year and a half ago, the message came in from Spirit that all those companies that are based solely in greed will cease to exist.
Wow, that's awesome. I love it.
So only those companies that can adopt a more humanitarian, more love-based experience will be the ones that will prosper in this new reality we're creating, because there is no room for fear or greed in this new world that we're creating. So, and I think a lot of those massive corporations that, they will cease to exist. I'm not investing in Wall Street for that reason.
Well, can I add to it that you can even look at it logically and see how they can't continue to exist, because the way we're now interconnected, like what used to take weeks now can be done in an instant, right? And so the old fear-based top-down hierarchical models just aren't efficient. If a new threat comes into the company or a new market opportunity, if it has to go all the way up the chain to the CEO and back down, the opportunity is going to be lost. And so they have to empower people. And think about this too, in many companies, or let's say physical, hotels, restaurants, anywhere where there's more, let's say, lower paid labor, everybody's on a computer now. So everybody's has a learning curve and has value as an employee that isn't easily replaced. So for all these reasons, we have to treat people well, even if we're greedy. This is because there's a lot of people that are in the conscious business community, and that's wonderful. But I didn't want to approach that because it's like preaching to the choir. Right. I want to appeal to the greedy CEO. And many times, because I've done lots of leadership experiences, and most of the time, if they're really angry or whatever, it's some deep wound that once it gets healed, they're better, right? And so my goal is to reach them logically by saying you'll make more money, maybe get them into a group experience and have them become more loving, So that's one of my visions that may happen one day.
Yeah. So what I've seen over the last couple of years is that some corporations are actually bringing those kind of training programs into their corporate environment.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah. I think that's really the key, because they're seeing that they're not agile enough. They're too, like I said, too hierarchical. There's just too many steps and too much top-down control. And that's really what happened when the Japanese car companies started to really build great cars. I don't remember if it was like in the 40s and 50s when that happened, after World War II. Mm-hmm. And it was because they were creating they were using Deming's work around self-organizing teams and empowering people to make decisions at the level where they could do it quickly and keep improving, right? And then their cars were just amazing. And so we know it works to empower people. It's really just the companies that have the most trouble are the ones that the leader is a control freak,
Right. Yeah. What does love in the workplace look like?
Well, people are smiling. People support each other. So there would not be a merit system that's based on competing within the company. I actually worked for a bank years ago, and there were 5 people in our team. And my manager said he only hired the best people. And he was told by the management team that his scores, he had to score us each on a scale of 1 to 5 at the end of the year. And he was told that it had to average to 3. In other words, if somebody was a 5, somebody else had to be a 1. Mm. Now, just think about that. Why would you ever want to help your teammate if you knew that could hurt your score at the end of the year? It's so stupid. And he refused to do it. He said, I don't hire 1s. He said, I hired all 5s and you're all getting 5s. Mm-hmm. And I thought, good for you. I don't know how long he lasted. I didn't stay real long at that place, but.
Yeah, and that competition in the workplace, I find that interesting because a lot of companies use that.
Yeah, and there's ways, I think, to have healthy competition. It can be fun, but it shouldn't be where your livelihood or your respect or your joy is affected. It just should be more like, hey, there's an event for all of us at the end if we help each other and make this happen. Right. It can be like little friendly ways to compete, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of because sometimes competition, when it's not, it can bring out the best in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When it's competition as a game rather than combativeness, which is what it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's ways too, I think, where we can help people compete against themselves. So there are sports like that, swimming, golf, where you might be competing with others, but it's really, you can improve upon yourself. To me, that's a really fun way to inspire people. And then they may get prizes for the most improved, but it's not like your win is anybody else's loss. It's just like
Right.
and that's more of a quantum look too, is it's not a fixed pie. It's like the pie can grow as everybody gets better. Oh, and I wanted to just comment about you're talking about love and what it is. I actually think love is the only thing, and I could be wrong, of course, but that doesn't have an opposite. I think there's just love and the absence of it, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then I think it's everything, because everything's energy. We already know that, right? And so,
Yeah, it took me a while to grasp that, because the kind of general idea is that hate is the opposite of love,
yeah.
because we're looking at love as an emotion,
Mhm.
and as the energy of all that is, and
Yeah.
love as an energy doesn't have an opposite. So then I had this, that hate is the opposite of love. And then about 10 years ago, I was introduced to the idea that fear is the opposite of love, because hate is a fear-based vibration, a fear-based energy.
Well,
because people hate what they fear.
well,
Then I finally realized, wait a minute, fear is the lowest vibration of love. If love is all that is, fear is actually part of love.
mm-hmm. And I would say to hate somebody, you have to care about them, right? I actually think indifference is more, I don't know if it's worse than hate, but it's where you don't care, right?
Right.
Yeah. Hate, I think you can't hate unless you really have an attachment to someone or something. So I agree with you.
Yeah. So I mean, because hate is when you're so attached to something. It might not be that particular thing, but if you hate another person, it's because there's an attachment to what you think they should be based on your own judgments.
Right.
That kind of thing. Yeah. So that's why people hate what they fear. When it comes down to it, it's what are they afraid of?
Yes. Yeah, that's good. Or what are they attached to that they?
Which is still an attachment is, again, it's a fear-based belief that something has to be a certain way.
Yeah.
So, and that's interesting about apathy, but then that would also be that if you're apathetic about someone else, then there's apathy toward yourself as well, because every relationship we have with other people is a reflection of the relationship we have with ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we have a loving, compassionate relationship with ourselves, we're going to be far less judgmental about how we expect other people to perform.
Yeah. Judgment is really interesting. I remember I had a lot of self-criticism, self-loathing from all my traumas. And I remember reading a book, it might have been 30 years ago, by John Polsky. I think it was When Everything You Always Wanted Isn't Enough. And then there was a chapter on judgment, and it said, just try going for 10 minutes without judging. And I couldn't even go for a couple seconds. Like, it was such an awareness awakening. And then I found that as I worked on loving myself, and I did tons of work on that I didn't judge other people as much or at all, really. Like, most of the time when I find myself having a judgment, I try to get under it and go, okay, I can have compassion. And then, what is it about them that's bothering me? That is something in me that I don't like. And yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And then what's interesting is the not judging yourself for 10 minutes. How much of that is, or not judging for 10 minutes, how much of that judging is like judging of ourselves?
Yeah, I'm judging myself that I can't stop judging for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, judgment's important. It's just that I think we're taught as children, maybe, that's the most important thing. And then it's sort of indoctrinated into us. We don't get taught to be intuitive in school and things like that,
Right. And so the differences between judgment and discernment, that's, I think, things that isn't really taught.
That's a great nuance. Definitely. Yeah. And then we're judged, all the time as we're young and in school. And then we wonder why bullying happens. But that's really what kids are taught, is to be judging each other by your grades and all that other, the magazines. It's all about looking a certain way. So it's very, I don't know, underhanded the way they do it.
It's all part of the fear-based reality.
Yeah.
Right? That we're
They make more money.
where we all get to a point at some point in our human collective where we accept ourselves and each other as we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mentioned that I'd started to do a PhD, and I was in it for a year, and I wasn't even thinking about, like, I didn't have any awareness of leaving. And then some guy was in town, a friend of mine said he does great readings, and I went to see him, and he goes, "Why are you doing a PhD?" And I thought, that's a really good question. And what I realized is that growing up with very low self-esteem, and then I wrote this book, and suddenly I got my master's degree. That was a part of it, feeling that like I was worth something, I guess I'll put it that way. Then I wrote this book, and now I'm, a superstar, and people are wanting to get their pictures taken with me. And I'm like, wow, whatever. And then that kind of faded after a while. And I realized that I was doing it because I was doing the PhD because I felt like I had to keep doing amazing things to be lovable. Mm. And I went like, whoa, and so that's why I love Brene Brown's work about we're worthy of love and belonging without any of our degrees or our accomplishments. We just really have to get that homeless person on the street is worthy of love and belonging. And we are too, even when we're shitty or don't do the right thing. We're always worthy of love and belonging. And I have to keep reminding myself of that, if I judge myself or screw up, and, just let go of that perfectionism and needing to wow people in order to feel lovable.
Yeah. Yeah. So is this some of the stuff that you teach? You teach this, where is it that you're teaching all of this? This is what I want to know. Where and how are you teaching this to corporations?
So I don't work with corporations. I was really still trying to figure out what is my role, because I don't have a background that I don't have the credentials to go into a company. Although at some point I may find a way to do that. But what I have been guided to do, which I'm doing, is creating a platform called Your Wisdom Institute. And I'm creating courses for people who are anybody really, but I'm gearing it towards people like me who maybe gave up their dream and did the responsible thing. So my career was satisfying financially and professionally, but not at that deeper soul level. And I think there's a lot of people in my age group that perhaps gave up and did the practical thing and always wanted to do something else and have a lot of wisdom to share. So I'm creating a course, which I'm launching in April, called Rock Your Wisdom. And it's to help people access, maybe tie it to their purpose and figure out what is their wisdom to share. And then I'll have a platform if they want to use that. And I also I'm launching a webcast called Your Wisdom Matters, where I want to interview people who want to share wisdom. And since I have a corporate audience, I have a lot of people that know me on LinkedIn, I can take this wisdom that we gather and bring it to corporate clients. So I feel like that's going to be my role, is just bringing awareness to people who have a whole career full of wisdom and make it available, because they're not part of some big organization that markets to them. So that's really what I'm being guided to do. And I also want to reach out to other populations that might not get access but have wisdom, like people that live on the street, homeless people or people in the prison system. I just feel like there's wisdom there that would be valuable to all of us. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
I think every person we meet has something to teach us.
I do too.
If we're open to listening and learning. Yeah. So I love that idea. Now, is this going to be, are you seeing this as being like a collaborative effort, or?
Well, I think it will be. I have a few people that are involved initially, and then, so I want to build a team and have partners and things that, so if people are interested in getting involved, please reach out to me.
Yeah, I love that. And the reason I was asking is because, a couple of years ago, Spirit was showing me that there were going to be more and more and more collaboratives and co-ops coming forward.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is about a year and a half ago, I went to an event and there was all these buttons that say collab on them. And I was like, cool, collaboration's making its way into the mainstream.
Yeah.
So it is becoming the new way of doing business. And as we move out of competition and into collaboration, because collaboration creates a win-win.
Yeah, and don't you think it's really about this divine feminine energy that is coming back to bring us into balance? And so I will argue it's not men versus women, that there's so many wonderful men that have a divine feminine energy, and we have our divine masculine. That's why we're doing this, and we have the drive to push forward. So we both need both of them. And this beautiful way of collaborating that raises all boats and has some maybe playful competition within it. But I really think that's the divine feminine. So that's really exciting to me. And
the playful competition is fun because it can bring out the best in people, as long as everyone understands it's about bringing out the best in people and not the worst in people. And in a love-based environment, it does bring out the best in people.
Yeah, nobody suffers as a result of it. It's just, and everybody champions the winners. Yeah.
It's like good, clean fun. Yeah. And the whole team wins in a collaboration. And you're right about the divine feminine. It's one thing for people to understand is that every single one of us, as you said, we are all both masculine and feminine. About each of us embracing the balance within ourselves. And for anyone that might be misunderstanding it, for men to embrace their inner divine feminine isn't about emasculating the male at all. Those are two very different things. And there's a kind of some misunderstanding that that's what it is, but that's not what it is at all. It's about embracing your inner collaboration and communication and all those things that would normally be considered feminine. It doesn't discount the masculine at all.
No.
There's kind of this misperception that one has to be above the other, or there has to be competition between the masculine and feminine. And this is really about bringing it into balance with ourselves and within the organizations that we create.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And it's actually completely opposite of emasculating men, because that's allowing men to be in their full power, not in a fear-based reality. It's more of that competition and the need for power and control. Where in base reality, we're creating that need for power and control. It dissipates because we're creating a win-win. And the next thing we're going to start seeing beyond collaboration is cooperation. And we're moving into that, and that's where every person on the team, it creates a win-win-win, which is even beyond the collab. But for the vast majority of humanity, moving out of competition and into collaboration is being out of fear and into love.
Well, and I actually think of it as co-creation, right? So
that's exactly what it is. So for me, it is co-creation. Cooperation is intercreation. So it's like step beyond collaboration, but not a lot of people yet are ready to move into co-op, because it requires a completely different mindset and a completely different heart to move into intercreation.
In some ways we're doing it right now, right? We're just allowing, and it's so fun. I do want to say too about the men, I've seen when men have a healthy balance of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, they champion us stepping into leadership and wisdom. They want that. They don't see it as a threat to them. So that's another really beautiful aspect of that balance.
I agree. And for those men, it's kind of like, it's almost like it takes some of the pressure off, because there's been so much pressure for so many centuries for the men to be the ones that are in charge. And it's kind of like taking some of that pressure off of them to always have to be the one in charge, and always have to be the one in control, and always have to be the one making it allows for everyone to rise up to where their personal gifts are.
Yeah.
Rather than expectations that as a man you have to play this role.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
The other thing I find with that is that it's allowing, as more women start to come into their own balance of not feeling like we have to be men in order to succeed, because we're kind of pulling back from that and allowing our own feminine to this higher vibrational feminine to play the role in our life. What I find fascinating is that it's allowing the gentle man to re-emerge.
Yeah.
And, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Like it's nice to have the door opened or those.
Yeah, and we don't feel like we got to open the door ourselves. It's like,
yeah. Yeah. That's right.
You know?
And to allow it.
It's a mutual respect thing. Yeah.
Right. That's true.
So it's cool to see to see the gentlemen starting to re-emerge, because they're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because I was on my own from a very young age. My father died when I was 5 in a plane crash, and then so my mother really kind of disappeared at the same time. She was working now full time and was in a grief, and so I kind of got to where I raised myself, and I can pretty much do whatever I need to. So I'm having to allow people to do things for me, and it's hard, right? Because there's some ego there, like, oh, if I let you do it, that means I can't do it, and that's crazy. So gifting that person, somebody to be able to, whether it's a man or a woman or anybody, to do something for me and just receive it, because that gives them joy. It's challenging.
Yeah. And I've talked about that before, where if we don't allow other people to give to us, we're kind of robbing them of the gift that comes with being the giver.
Yes, exactly.
And not receiving gracefully, we deny the gift of people who are trying to give to us.
And we know how good it feels to give, right? So why would we deny that of others?
Just gratefully and graciously receive it. It was even as simple as somebody opening the door for us. And this isn't about a man versus woman thing. This is about mutual respect.
Yeah. Right.
So just being okay with one having the courtesy to open the door for another person, and full receiving when someone else opens the door for us. And this isn't like doors. I'm talking about proverbial doors too. So
yeah, I've actually worked with people around self-love, and one of the exercises I offer is that you stand and have somebody sit in front of you a few feet away and just compliment you, and you have to stand with your hands in kind of an open position, like beside you, face your palms facing forward, and not say anything except thank you. And it can be really challenging for somebody who doesn't receive. Yeah. Or I think a lot of us have had the experience where somebody compliments us and we go, oh, that old thing, or, oh, we have to like deflect it.
Or justify it. Yes. A little game of not being able to just sit and receive.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's receiving is really uncomfortable for people who aren't accustomed to it.
Yeah.
Because we're always playing on our own. Again, it goes back to self-judgments.
Yeah. Right.
And to just, I think that's a phenomenal exercise you do with people.
There's another one that my girlfriend took a course where they taught us, it was all for women, to brag, so she and I were working together, just doing cross coaching years ago. And the first thing we would do would be brag about our accomplishments for the week, just to work that muscle. Right. And so we were at a party together and we started interchanging that way. And I couldn't believe the dirty looks we got. It's like and it wasn't like we were being obnoxious. We would say things like, I brag that blah, blah, blah. Right. But that's so looked down on, I don't know if it's part of the programming to make us feel less than, but it's just a fascinating practice to do it and then know that it's okay. I mean, I'm not advocating people go around and brag to everybody, but I think as a muscle to exercise, it's kind of good to just sink into what we've perhaps worked very hard to accomplish and feel good about it. And, it can be among friends with, with the precursor that, this is a practice I'm doing, whatever, but it's
Right.
just a fun way.
So do you think, just out of question, do you think that's more of a female thing?
I do.
Yeah, because we have a very difficult time. Usually when women get together with other women, we talk about all of the lousy things that we are. And
yeah, right.
We have our pity parties.
And as we were talking a little bit before we started about the Abraham idea that what we focus on, we create more of, we give it energy, right? And so if we get around it and that used to be my life. I was more comfortable with people who were miserable. And then when I started doing my own healing work and spiritual growth work, it's like, I don't even like to be around that anymore. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. It makes it so draining.
Yeah, it is. It's a low vibration, I think.
Mm-hmm. And so this is about kind of shifting when we get together with our friends, of being able to share our accomplishments. Now, that's what I find interesting, and not from an egoic perspective, because would love to just brag on and on about everything we've ever done.
Right.
This is more about self-acceptance and self-love. Yeah. And being okay with our accomplishments.
And it fuels us, I think, to do more, because that's really the purpose of it, I feel, is to say we kind of like eschew or forget what we've really done. And sometimes I just think, oh, I'm here in my life now, and what do I have to show for it? And then I go, oh, but I've done some things, and I can use those as maybe credentials to actually open up more doors, because I feel like right now I want to be of service. I don't need much for myself. I want to use my wisdom and my talents. In fact, one of the things that motivates me is that I've been through lots of trauma, like losing my parents in a bad car accident. I've had breast cancer, all these things. And finally, when I started working with love in business, I was like, okay, Spirit, I've gotten all the cosmic 2x4s. I don't need any more. And then I say, all right, I have to do this work. I've been given the knowledge, all the privilege and the education and all these things. If I don't do it, and I go to my pearly gates or however we, meet our life review, and they go, okay, we gave you all these things and you didn't do what you knew you should. You have to go back and go through it again. That's one of the biggest motivators for me to push through things that scare me.
Yeah. So that's really cool. And I think that's part of it, when we kind of get to the age that you and I are, where we now just want to be of service.
Yeah.
We don't really need much.
Right.
And so then how can I use, like you were saying, how can I use everything that I've garnered in my lifetime to be of maximum service? And that does require doing like you said, what I call a personal inventory. Success breeds more success. There's that. And then the self-confidence that comes from going back through our life and looking at all of the little successes, even the little ones, and kind of do a life inventory of, oh, I did do that, and I did do that, and I did do that. And then how can I use the lessons that I learned, and the wisdom that I extracted, and all of those things, because we don't get to be our age and not have I'm assuming you're just a few years older than me, but not too many, because I think we've had that discussion.
Yeah.
Right. But you don't get to be at least 50, let's put it that way, without having a lifetime of lessons and experiences and successes, even if they're little successes. We've all had them. And it's about going in and making an inventory of everything, so that one, it builds the self-confidence to go out and do what the next thing is that we need to do. Because 2021, I don't know about you, but what I'm feeling for myself and so many other people I talk to is that there's almost this feeling of, now what?
Yeah.
This next thing that's calling to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we're in this.
I talked to her having that same conversation of, well, now who am I here to be?
Yeah. Yeah. And And when I think about what I want to do, I could work one-on-one, but I feel like I want to create systems so that it can be exponentially, people can benefit, if that makes sense, because I know how to do software and websites and all that. And so how can I have, it's like the trim tab on a large ship, that concept. It's just a small little paddle that moves and it can turn an entire steamship. And so that's to have that leverage, that powerful leverage is what I'm really just unpacking right now. It's like, what are the small things I can do with what I'm good at? What's my genius zone? And then find people to support me to make this large, powerful platform, knowledge base available to the most, for the highest good, I think.
Right.
Way to put it.
Yeah. And I love that term. That's one of my favorite terms. How can I serve what's for the highest and greatest good?
Yeah. And with what we're seeing in the world and all the changes and people being, people's lives have been turned upside down. And so many people are questioning, okay, what is mine to do? And what I was so attached to is no longer here, and I'm still around. And maybe there's something new for me. And so I want everybody to think about why they're here and what, we can just keep asking ourselves, what's mine to do? And if you have a meditation practice or do more writing, that's a great question to keep asking. Like, who am I? What's mine to do? Why am I here? Things like that can help. Yeah.
And how can I best serve? And this reality that we're moving into is very heart-based. So it is about how can I best serve?
Yeah.
And understanding, here's one of the things that, I talk about this in my book, Own Your True Worth, where the universe serves back to us what we serve forward. So it's about when we're of service, and the universe gives us which is funny because in the fear-based reality, we talk about, you get what you deserve kind of thing, as almost like if you're a bad person, you get what you deserve. Well, because the universe serves back to us in response to what we serve forward. So in that sense, yeah, we get what we deserve. But if we're serving forward through this vibration of service and love and highest and greatest good, that's what gets served back to us as well. That's how we create this entirely new reality. So yeah, it comes back to what have I received in my life? What have I learned in my life? And how can I use that to best serve? And the other thing too, for people who are wondering, yeah, my life kind of went to hell in 2020. Those are awakening experiences. So what humanity has gone through is a global collective awakening experience.
Yeah.
And so when it looks like things are falling apart, they're actually coming together.
Yeah. I hear. Some people are saying it's almost like we're going through a near-death experience, but I think we're going to go to a higher frequency, which is that love frequency.
Right.
And a lot of people who have had to keep themselves guarded or been traumatized because they're so heart-centered, they're going to be coming out and going like, wow, this feels so good. It'll be safe to just come from love. Whatever you're doing, everything will be love-centered. And this is what we deserve as humans, I think.
Well, This was the intention that we set for ourselves, thousands of years ago.
Right. And then we took a little detour. There'll be history books written about that.
I call it the great human experience is the most complex video game ever played, and we're collectively leveling up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great. Yeah, we're gonna get some. We got enough tokens to go to the next level.
Yeah. We played that other level long enough. We get our level up.
I love that. That's great. All right.
It's a fun way to look at it, and it's a fun way to look at why history keeps repeating itself too.
Yeah.
So we keep repeating the same level over and over and over again, and I think we're finally finished with that level, and now we're leveling up.
Well, and you think about there's some things that whether people buy into it or not, but this like 25,600 year cycle or whatever that is, that's one of the things I think in the Kali Yuga, in the Vedic perhaps, and Mayan and all that. And then there's also the age of Aquarius that we've been talking about entering, which is, there were songs written about it, in the 70s, that love is the frequency or whatever.
Yeah. So we officially entered the age of Aquarius on December 21st.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. So that's why.
I thought so, but then I heard something about the spring solstice next week. So
no, it was December 21st. That's why I don't know if you noticed how much different the energy has felt since then.
Yeah. I maybe not.
One of the things that I've noticed is that things are happening much faster, and that soul family is coming back. Like people that I have kind of been connected with over the last 10 years, they're all just like showing up in masses in my field.
Wow. That's
and it is that's one of the things that I'm sensing, because we're moving into cooperation and intercreating rather than, so collaboration is creating side by side and cooperation is intercreating. And so for those who are already in that heart-centered space, the intercreating is becoming possible. And and I've seen that since December 21st. I can feel the energy has shifted for the collective experience. And that's also why we are collectively being guided to focus on the world we want to create rather than on what has been swirling around us. And I know you've gotten that message too of great acknowledge that has happened, but let's not put our energy on it, because we need to put our energy in the new world. So we have stepped into the age of Aquarius. It's not the dawning anymore. We are actually locked and loaded.
Wow.
What's happening in the spring equinox is that the energy is being bumped up again.
Oh, good. Okay.
Leveling of energy with each one of these sun moon cycles, the energy bumps up a little bit more. But we're in it. That's why so many of us are feeling so called to this, like last couple of months of, well, now what? Now what? Now what?
Yeah.
Like something entirely new has happened because something entirely new has happened.
Interesting. And I feel like in addition to the cooperation, which it's a part of it too, is going back to the land and growing our own food and, working with others to really be self-sufficient.
And create community gardens.
And, not be reliant on corporations to make our food, right? So
I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And part of the visual I was getting interesting about a week or so ago was almost like creating this new reality on top of the existing one. So we start creating these new structures and community gardens and empty plots of land within cities that can be turned into gardens and growing our own food and supporting farmers markets and supporting local businesses, shopping on Etsy instead of Amazon. And it's all kind of like this groundswell of supporting each other.
Yes.
And that as we do more and more of that, then the old way will just fade away because it's not sustainable. And we're not sustainable. And that visual that you were showing about creating corporate like councils within corporations instead of the pyramid, right? Where that's what I was getting, is that visual of empowering teams rather than having to go all the way to the top to get things done. So the visual I was getting is Metatron's cube, that is what our new reality is going to look like.
Interesting.
And it's all councils rather than or teams and co-ops and councils and alliances rather than these hard pyramidal structures.
Well, there are some beautiful business models like holacracy and sociocracy, where it's sort of teams that are seen as circles that have overlapping links. So and it's really beautiful that it is more of that, say, cooperation or a co-creation. Yeah,
and that's the other term that gets used a lot is alliance. You'll start seeing the word alliance pop up more as well. It's the same kind of thing.
Interesting.
So this idea of teaching people, one, how to have a better relationship with themselves, and two, have a better relationship with the other people that are in their sphere of influence.
Well, and I would argue, and this is certainly true in partnerships, but any relationship really is, I really feel we can't, the degree to which we can have a good relationship with a team or a partner is really dependent on the relationship we have with ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
First.
Yeah. And we're finally starting to understand that it comes back to the relationship with self.
Yeah.
I was on the phone yesterday with someone who we both grew up in this. I won't get into details of how I grew up. I think I told you how I grew up, but I reconnected yesterday with a woman I haven't talked to since we were kids. It's been literally 40 years since I've talked to her.
Wow.
And we were talking about how we were not allowed to have a relationship with ourselves.
Oh my gosh.
That any relationship with yourself was evidence of pride and arrogance, and so like even looking in the mirror was evil and prideful.
Oh my gosh.
And so this idea of learning how to have a relationship with myself has been kind of has been a process. Like I'm there now, but I couldn't even grasp it 10 years ago. It's like, what do you mean I had a loving relationship with myself? That's why? I don't even know.
What does that even mean, right?
Yeah, I couldn't even grasp it because there was a point in my life where I hated myself. So be able to move from self-loathing into liking myself, then finally getting to loving myself and understanding that it has nothing to do with arrogance at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, God wants that for us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And two, it is, and this was the other thing, that to love ourselves and love each other the way that God loves us.
Mm. Yeah. And, you know, I've heard that, I'm sure most people have heard that line where somebody's really arrogant or self-centered and they go, oh, he loves himself too much. And I go, no, it's the total opposite.
Completely the opposite.
Yeah. And that when we truly love ourselves, and I feel when we know we are, you know, at our center is God and we're all one, then we can be the most generous, the most humble, the most gracious in any conflict. You know, I get into conversations with people where they might not like what I'm saying, and I just refuse to label people or call them names. I just say, this is what I feel. I'm not attached to you agreeing with me, but knowing that I'm holding the highest outcome for them as well, and I don't need to have them think a certain way. I want just love to be in the energy, and whatever the outcome, I don't get attached to it.
Right. And so that's when we're coming from a position of self-love. So, you know, love ourselves first really is loving the God self that's within every single one of us.
Yeah.
And that from that position of self-love is humility. That the ego doesn't need to be fed. There is no alternative reasons that we're out there, you know, showing off, or arrogance is based in fear. Arrogance is based in the fear of not being enough, which is the opposite of self-love. So part of this again is the retraining that loving yourself isn't. It's the opposite of arrogance.
It's true. Yeah, it's really true. It's great.
So. So I love this conversation. I would love for you to share with people, one, how to reach out to you, how do they find you, and how do they become a part of these, one, the collaboration that you were talking about creating, and then also how do they begin to learn having these kind of experiences with themselves and with their teams, because I think this is really important to bring even with small teams, because I think we're going to start seeing more and more teams coming out of this new reality we're creating. So how do we work together as a team so that no one person ends up being the one who's in charge and in control, and letting go of that need for control?
Yeah, beautiful. So my website is oliviapr.com. That's OLIVIAPR.com. And my email is olivia@oliviapr.com. So you're welcome to email me or go to my website and register and get on my mailing list, and I'll keep you up to date on things. And we're kind of, it's being birthed right now. So I don't have anything. I've got a bunch of free ebooks on my website if you're interested in other information. And then I'll be keeping people in touch. If you register, I'll let you know what's coming and how to get involved. And I look forward to it.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Sorry. This guy decided he needed to be part of the show today.
Oh, some more.
I'm trying to walk on my keyboard.
Some divine masculine there.
Yeah, he is, okay. This is Link. Link is a true gentleman. He's such a sweet, sweet boy.
Oh.
Yeah. And he is, he is
I miss having pets, but I'm a little bit too mobile right now for a pet. But I
got two kitties. And I have also the divine feminine. Yes.
Great.
It's funny because he is a complete gentleman. He refuses to fight, other cats. He's incredibly sweet. And then I have my other cat who is also a tuxedo, and she's big and she's kind of a brute. So
she's really the alpha cat.
Yeah, she's the alpha female. It's really interesting.
That is.
Yeah. One of the perks of working from home is that our pets and kids sometimes show up on our shows, which is
that's great.
It's actually great because it's allowing. One of the things that's happening with working from home and being on camera from home is that it is allowing people to have less judgments about perfection of how they have to show up.
That's true. It's true. And having to just be on camera all the time, I was terrified at first, and I'm still very worried, about looking the right way or whatever, but I've gotten so much better about not worrying about stuff.
Yeah, we're not expected to be as perfect as we used to be, which is really refreshing.
Well, and it comes back to, I say to myself, it's not about me anyway. It doesn't matter how I look if what I'm doing is trying to inspire people and give them tools and access to information and opportunities. So who cares how I look? I try to look nice, but it's really not about me. So
right.
That's
it's
good.
About the message, and it's about the service.
Yeah, right. That's
yeah.
Right.
Now, had I been really smart, because I'm still new at live streaming, I would have gotten your information and actually put it in the banners so I go across the bottom. But I'm still trying to figure out how banners work. So I apologize for that.
You're way ahead.
I will make sure on the YouTube channel that I'll make sure that I have all of your contact information on the YouTube channel when this gets permanently placed.
Okay. Yeah. And if you just Google Olivia Data Science, you'll find me. So
Olivia Data Science. I mean,
just because that's where I show up a lot. So I'm on LinkedIn, and I actually have a Facebook page too called Your Wisdom Matters on Facebook. So where I share inspirational quotes and things.
Oh, great. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for being here. It has been really fun getting to know you this way, as opposed to just sitting and having a cup of coffee and lunch, because we never talk business. We just talk family and stuff.
Right. So, yeah, this has really been fun, and we'll have to get together again soon in person.
We do. Well, you moved further away. You've made it a little bit more difficult. I can't just pop over and have a cup of coffee with you.
I get down there pretty occasionally, though. I'd make a trip.
Okay. Yeah. Well, next time you make a trip down, then we'll have to get together and have a bite or a cup of tea or something for sure.
Sounds great. Thank you. It's been really fun.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
My pleasure.
And, I'm delighted to be of service in assisting you however I can, because ultimately that's why we're here, right? We are all here to assist and support each other in this beautiful world of mutual support that we are building.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
And, I thank all of you for watching. Again, this is all about love. It's all about liberating ourselves from the fear-based reality that we have been living in. We are rising above fear and falling in love with life. And ultimately, that's the world that we're creating. Thank you all for being here. And as always, get bold, be fearless, and live free.
Bye, everybody.